Go. Well, Dixie, I would like to take this time to welcome you to Aaron's Opinion. Thank you for joining me. Basically, so quickly, only since we have met last night in a meeting. I really appreciate you coming out so quickly to help us understand agriculture and what has been happening in St. Lucia. I will tell you the most interesting part of my background is that I actually volunteered at the Blind Welfare Association in St. Lucia. So I'm very familiar with your great nation. St. Lucia is a wonderful place. So I did watch the Facebook video that you sent me, which is excellent. But tell us, how did you, for one thing, how did you get involved with agriculture in the first place?
Well, raised up in a farming community that's the south of St. Lucia, Mikud, and most like that's what my parents do regularly to send us to school and take care of the children with agriculture. You know,
Okay. E- Excellent. So you were kind of born into it. You were kind of born into the agricultural community, as it were, right?
yes, most definitely.
Excellent. Excellent. So, for listeners who are less familiar, and of course in the States, fewer and fewer people are farmers, which is a critical job. It's critically important that you're a farmer. So, what is agriculture? What is a farm? And like, what is farming? Can you kind of define it for people who are less familiar?
Well, farming is one of the best job ever I can ever come across because like you feed your own self, you know. You plant something, you can also grow. You grow something, you can eat and feed your family on it also, you know.
Right.
Yes, and now you have to eat healthy because so many diabetes around, hypertensive. So you grow what you eat, and you know exactly what you're eating when you grow what you eat. You know.
Okay.
So
Good. Good. So, basically, how does, if you were to give me a schedule, of your daily routine, what is the daily routine of a farmer in today's world, in today's society? What can you tell me?
yes, daily routine every day. Go and work and come back home. I go on my farm about a little after 6 in the morning, and I come back at this 1, 2 in the afternoon. And it's a Monday to Friday daily basis every day. And I have no boss on me, like I work for my own self. So I'm not under any pressure with doing my own job. So yeah,
Sure, sure. Well, there's no pressure from a boss or from a supervisor, but of course, there is pressure to make sure you're growing your crops right and properly and making sure that they're growing in a healthy way, right? So,
yes, for sure.
how does all of that work? In other words, like how do you engineer a farm and how do you work a farm today? Like what exactly do you do?
Well, I cut the grass on my own. I plant my own. I plant on my own. I prepare the land, plow the land on my own, prepare it, plant it, yes, fertilize it, and harvest on my own as well. Yes, and you can feel the difference when it's ready. You also have I have my calendar, so the time I plant it, so when it will be ready to harvest as well. You know.
Okay, good. So, how did you like go about setting up your farm? In other words, do you have to set up certain areas for the crops to grow well, or are the crops kind of already just sort of growing around your property? Like, how do you engineer a healthy environment for the crops?
Yeah, well, you have to set up the environment for the crop. Make sure you clean around the crop. Make sure you clean it on time. Don't let the grass grow taller than the plants because it will retard it. Make sure you clean it, you weed it on time, you know. So, planting crops like a lot of loves. You're always loving up the crops as well. So because when you do those things, like the crops will feel the vibes around you, and they'll grow healthier as well. Make sure you keep it clean, keep the surrounding clean and neat at all times, and try your best to maneuver so no disease, no chemical will come across.
So, as someone, I can tell you that I was born blind with glaucoma. I also have something wrong with my heart, and I have some usable vision. But for you, do you have usable vision?
No, no, completely blind,
That
completely.
is that is
Yeah.
fine. That is fine. So I'm sure anyone who is sighted who is watching this video or listening to this episode will wonder, so how does a blind, not only how does a blind person kind of manage that task of mowing the grass around the crops and doing that, but then at the same time, how do you also know that you are not accidentally damaging your crops while trying to take care of your property all at the same time? Like, how do you, I guess, how do you manage that? I would
Well,
wonder. Yeah.
accident to happen sometimes.
Sure.
The accident to happens because sometimes you go beyond one or two will damage, but it's not majority will get you hurt. And also let's check and put the Most High in it first because I'm not trusting the Most High, and that's what is my spiritual side. So that's why I believe I can do it when He's there with me. I trust whenever the Most High is around me, I can do everything because He's the one that strengthens me. So
Hmm.
I don't make it difficult for me to praise Him. I'm praising the real God. So He is always around me. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Really good. Really good. Now, as far as the tools that are used today, if you were to describe from a blindness perspective the different agricultural tools, how many tools have you needed to learn how to use safely during your lifetime?
It's unbelievable. I use a sharp cutlass every day. I use a spade. I use a fork also, a fork to help to plow the land as well. And I use all those things on my own. You know, I use it on my own. Make the beds to plant the dash in. Also make the heap to plant the yam. I use those things on my own.
Right. And yeah, and that is totally fine. But in other words, how did you learn how to use the tools? Did your parents teach you, or did you just sort of pick it up? I mean, I'm very pleased. I'm very impressed by this. How did you pick up these tools?
Actually, I wasn't born blind. It's 15 years like I lost my
Ah,
sight.
okay.
15 years since I lost my sight. So actually, I used to use them before.
Okay.
So I have the
So
spirit in me
you were always, so the answer is you were always used to using the agricultural tools.
all the time now, all my life.
I see. I see. That's very interesting. That's excellent. So, do you even remember who taught you how to use those tools when you were able to see, or do you just like watch your parents or watch other people and sort of
Well, in
learn
St.
just by
Lucia's,
watching? Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
in St. Lucia, raising up in the bananas industry, all our parents, that's what the tools they used to have every day on a daily basis. From the time we grew up in it, using it from small, by the time we go as a teenager, we master it already. So take it from then.
Right. So you just kind of learn learn by osmosis, I guess we would say, just sort of by the environment and watching everything around you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to me, because Tixie, I actually grow up. Actually, the place I'm in right now, we used to farm, and by we I mean the community where I live. They used to farm tobacco, and they stopped growing tobacco in the 60s and 70s. They paid farmers to stop growing tobacco, but it was a major part of the culture of my state. So agriculture can take many forms. In my state, if we weren't growing tobacco, the other thing was oysters. People would go out on little skipjacks on little ships and collect oysters and fish, and
Oh
that's
no.
also similar That's also similar to agriculture in a sense too. Yeah, yeah. So specifically, what are your crops that you grow, and how do you like keep track of what needs to be grown?
Well, I do by ground provisions. I plant lots of dashings. That's one of my main crops.
Okay, so
And
okay, now a main crop. Now I'm not quite familiar with that word, what that means in American English. So you said the Lucian word is dashin. What do you
dashing,
mean? Dashin.
dashing. Yeah,
Dishin. Okay, and
yeah.
what is it for? In other words, for an American listener who's never volunteered in Lucia, they probably wouldn't know. So how would you
Well,
describe it?
it's grown from the ground cells. So like you dig it, you pull it out of the ground, and it
It's a
have
root.
a roots. Yeah,
A root. I
yeah,
see. I see. So yeah, yeah, that is very interesting. Is it similar to like a? Is it a potato or yam or similar to that?
yeah. It's not similar, but it's
Oh,
grown
okay.
like a tonya tree. You
What's
pull
that?
it up.
As you can tell, I'm not a farmer. What's that? What's that word? What is it? What does that mean? I'm learning a lot of great
Yes.
agriculture words. What's a
Well,
tanya? What?
it's a ground provisions. It's grown from the ground, just like the potato. But the trees are different. The trees will grow like tall, and the potato
Right.
will run down. It's similar to the potato, but it's the food is in the ground.
Huh, huh. Okay, so is it fair for me to tell the listeners that this crop, dashin, is similar to a potato, kind of?
No, it's
Oh,
not. It's not similar. It's different. Because you have to peel it. It's you peel it. And you pull it out, and the trees grow tall, and the potato run ground. Yeah, it's question.
what
It's questionable for you.
when you like, okay, so as a blind person, when you hold this crop, like what does it feel like when you're holding it in your hands? Can you describe the texture of it? Like,
Well, when you hold it, it's almost similar like a yam. You can peel. You have to peel it to cook it now.
okay, so it's
But it's a
similar.
starchy.
So it's
Yes.
similar to a yam. It's similar to a yam.
Yeah.
Yeah, yams are delicious. It's a very common food in your region, so they can be very very good.
I also have
Uh-huh.
plenty. I have plenty as well.
Oh, you have a
Yam.
lot of you
Yam.
also grow a lot of yam along with the
Yes. Yeah.
dashin.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. I see. So you have dashin similar to the yam, and then you have yam. We most
Yeah.
people in the states know the yam, and
Yeah.
then what else?
Yeah. We got some plantain as well.
Oh, I know what that is. I love those. Plantains are so good, so good. Those are a lot more common in American culture. Those are eaten quite regularly. Okay, so you have plantains and what else?
A few bananas, but not much bananas.
But not many. But not
Yeah.
many bananas. Oh, that's
Yes.
too bad. Now, why is there a shortage of bananas? Like how does that work?
Well, I don't think in St. Lucia I have no shortage of bananas. We got bananas everywhere in St. Lucia. We have plenty bananas around in St. Lucia.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. I have no
Right.
shortage of bananas in St. Lucia.
I see. But in fact, when I was there volunteering with Blind Welfare, I recall that many of the people there were telling me that, and I was there in 2014. So at that time, they were telling me back in 2014 that they said, "Oh, Aaron, back in the good old days, Lucia was the gem of the Caribbean. There was a lot more of a focus on bananas. It was a much better." Business model, a long time ago. It was a much
Yeah,
stronger crop, but but I mean, you're the expert. I mean, you're
yeah,
the farmer. So what's
yeah. But
what's the truth?
a lot of farmers drop the banana because the marketing, lack of marketing. They couldn't sell the crops, so they have to drop. A
Yes.
lot of the farmers have to drop.
So
This.
I find that fascinating. So my opinion, which by the way, this is an opinion show, is that and I'm sure I'm wrong about this, but marketing is not a reason not to grow something. you know, I mean, if I told you, like Tixie, if I told you, well, I'm American and I don't know what a dasheen is, I could say, Tixie, you need to stop growing dasheen just because I don't know what it is. That's not a reason. That's not a reason for you to stop growing it. So I think that's really strange that
Well,
marketing has impacted the industry so
yeah, but
much.
the amount of bananas they had and they couldn't export it, because you cannot sell all the bananas in St. Lucia. You have to export to the UK.
Hmm.
So they couldn't export it. Like the amount they was taking is very little from the scale they had, the large scales of bananas in St. Lucia. So a lot of
Hmm.
the farmers have to reduce on the farm.
Okay. So because they can't really sell enough of them, the farmers just stopped growing them basically. Although, um, how do you like how do you stop growing a crop if it's a crop that is part of the ecosystem of Lucia? How do you stop growing it? Like, wouldn't there always be bananas in the environment? I mean,
Yes, for sure. They never run short banana in St. Lucia. They always have banana in excess. Is the only problem they had to sell to export it. The quota was very little. So,
okay. So basically, the bananas didn't really go anywhere, but what happened was they weren't really able to include bananas in their financial portfolio of things to market and sell internationally. So it just became less common.
yes, 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 yes. Wow, interesting, eh?
Sure, it's extremely no, it's
Yeah.
extremely interesting to
Yeah,
me.
well, when you go to the supermarket
Hmm.
in Brooklyn, you have to ask for what's a dashing, so you'll get to know.
You know what? Tixie, my brother, I live with my parents and my brother is a wonderful chef. He's not a chef. He works for a marketing company, but he's one of these people that's like a food expert and he's like good enough to be a chef. So I will ask him what a dasheen is, and
Yes.
I'm sure he will know what it is. So, which brings me then to the next question, which is, so after you pick all of your crops, how do you decide what crops get sold and what crops you just eat yourself? How does that work?
Interesting, eh? Well, you know exactly when the crop's going to ready to harvest because you touch it, you feel it like when it's like when the dashing is popping up, it's going to good to harvest. So you know which section you plant first. Like I told you, I got my calendar of events. So I know which one I plant in January, which one I plant in February. So when I'm ready to harvest, I start harvest that one first, that one after. So I always have a plan, which one that's good to harvest and which one you can start eating from. And most
Hmm.
like I do a lot of organic stuff as well.
And
So
and you
and
didn't and you do I didn't quite catch it. You do a lot of what mix? I didn't quite catch it. What? A lot of
organic. Yeah.
what do you mean there? What
When
do you
you
mean?
plant, when you give the crops no kind of chemicals,
Ah,
it's all
okay.
natural. It's all
Got it.
natural.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very good. It's very good. So, do you end up selling like all of the crop? Like, what percentage of your crops do you decide to sell, and what
Yeah.
percentage do you decide to just eat for yourself?
Well, it's not, I have no percentage. How I'm doing it since I'm in the soil. Like I eat healthy every day. Was like it's once a week I sell by the market.
Mm,
On
mm-hmm.
Saturday, I only sell once a week. Whatsoever ready to harvest, I harvest it. I go by the market with someone and help sell and to help me sell it out. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Now, how does the marketing work there in Lucia? In other words, do you need a license to sell your crops, or I mean, you were talking when we were speaking last night with Mr. Wilbert. I think we brought it up a little bit, um, that there's a Ministry of Agriculture there in Lucia. So like, how does it work? Do you need a license to sell crops,
Well,
or do you just go and sell them?
well, by the market, you need no license, bro. No license by the market because you only sell it for local. You know,
Right.
the only thing they produce in St. Lucia right now, they're proving a farmer's ID card. So, like, if in case you have to go and sell to the hotels industry, you know, the supermarkets, you need a farmer's ID card,
So,
right?
in other words, are you saying that you have a special card that shows that you're a farmer? In other words?
Well, apparently, I don't have one right now in my hand because I used to sell for them, and like you have to take like a class, like a cost to sell for the
Hmm.
supermarket. Yeah. And I never have chance to do that course with them.
Okay, so that kind of so Tixie, that kind of reminds me in the States how sometimes you have to have a business license. So you kind of do have to have a business license if you want to sell your crop to a market, to like a store or something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but being me as a local man, I have need no license, no ID to go by the market on Saturday and just start selling your
Right.
crops. Yeah.
Right, right. So what is that environment like? Do you set up a stall? Do you set up a booth? How do you organize yourself in that marketplace
Well,
setting?
it's only a tree, man. You put out a tree and you put your stuff on the trees, and people pass around, you know, patronizing. And if you are well known, you're well known. People, the customers will come and visit you.
That's really cool. This is something that really interests me, and it's something I completely support. So this is really cool. Um, so now, of course, you're very well known in Lucia after the video and after a lot of public attention. Being a blind farmer. So, do most of the people like know you by name in the market? Do most people know you?
Well, a lot of people shout me as blind farmer. A lot of
I
people. You know, they shout with the blind farmer. That's a lot of people greet me. They don't. If people know me, they'll greet me by my name, Antonius or Tixi. But a lot of them greet me. Oh, that's the blind guy. That's the blind guy selling. Let me make him sell. You know, let me make him patronize. And let's patronize something. You know, you know.
I see. I see. Well, I mean, I think that's great, and of course I knew that blind people can farm. I don't know here in the States how many blind people, how many blind farmers there are, but I'm sure that there are blind farmers in the States. I just don't know them. So that's that's extremely interesting. So what are some crops? Oh, calendar. It reminded me of this. I'm sure you've heard of the Farmer's Almanac in the United States. It's like a book that gives you advice how to plant crops and things. So
Yeah,
in Lucia, or in the Caribbean, do they have like almanacs and
yes,
agricultural journals
yes,
that help people there?
yeah. It's called a McDonald in St. Lucia. You go for it and check the kind of weather, the moon, which one to plant on the ground, which one to plant that will be on top. So we normally follow it sometimes.
I I see. I see. So you follow this almanac, as it's called. Hmm.
Sometimes, not all the time, you know. Sometimes.
Ah, because I know in my community there is a farmer, and it's like a family, probably similar, where the family just grew up in agriculture, and the lady, the woman in the family who is a farmer, she always follows the farmer's almanac, and that's used as a very reliable resource here in the States. So, how do you suppose that book works?
Well, it works well, you know, because for instance, sometimes I plant some corn and there is a season you will plant the corn and will not much caterpillar will not bother it, you know.
Hmm.
So it will show you like, well, 3 days after full moon is the right time to plant the corn. So you know the caterpillar will not trouble that corn that much. You understand? Those little things, you know.
So it so does this book, this almanac, like tell you, um like what's an example of something that it would say to kind of put it into perspective, because most listeners are not farmers. Nothing personal, by the way. So most people are not familiar with farming. So what would this book like tell you?
Yeah, yes.
Hmm.
Well, this book will tell you like, okay, when is the best time to plant things that will be underneath the ground? When is the best time to plant things that will that will be on top, like corn, bananas, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it will even tell you even the time to fertilize those crops as well. Yeah.
And by time, does that mean like the month or the date on the calendar, or will it even say morning, afternoon, or evening?
No, it will give you like, okay, this week, like this week is until if it's full moon, until the first 3 4 days after full moon, you can plant things underneath the ground. If it's last quarters, it will tell you, well, last quarters is on the fifth, from the fifth to the 10th, you can plant corn on top. So
Wow.
it will give you a guidance.
That's when you stop and think about that, I'm sure you think it's a miracle, but for me as someone who doesn't farm, I think that's amazing. It really is. And I think a lot of it has to do with the moon because of course, the moon, pulls the water and that's the reason why we have waves is because of the moon. So the
Yeah,
moon affects the season. So there's to some extent if you follow the moon, you're on the right track at least if you pay attention to the moon's light. Definitely. Yeah. Hmm.
yes.
Has that book ever given you information that you followed and then the information turned out to be wrong? Has that book ever misled you?
Not at all, not at all, not at all. Because planting in agriculture is there. The other time you will get a total loss. The other time you will invest, and sometimes, for instance, you will plant some things and some disease will come from nowhere and fall on it. Agriculture will just get hit. I think last month there from Hurricane Elsa, the planting, the bananas get destroyed bad. That's agriculture on the whole, man. You
Right,
know,
right. So of course things happen. Weather patterns change, diseases come to the crops. Um, and the other factor is so how do you keep little animals out of your out of your crops? Little how do you keep the little critters away? Yeah.
especially those slugs and African snails and those things now.
Yeah, those are
Yes.
and you know what? That is an invasive. That's no laughing matter. I know exactly what you're talking about. The African land snail. Those are an invasive species in the states, and they wreak havoc. It's a serious, serious problem. So what do you do about that?
Well, trust me, sometimes I keep them clean all the time. Try to keep them away because they're always avoiding what I clean, and I don't like to use chemicals on my land. I don't use chemicals on my land right now. So
Mm-hmm.
I try my best. Sometimes the children monitoring them as well. Try to get the hiding spots to destroy them.
Yeah, yeah. Especially if you have someone sighted, maybe you can assign the task of a sighted person to go out and keep the snails away or something like that. Yeah.
That's my children job.
That is good. That is good, guys. For those who probably don't know what it is. It's a pretty big creature. It's not like a little tiny snail. They're these. I mean, it's kind of hard to visualize, but they're pretty big. It's a big
Yeah.
snail-like creature, and they're parasitic, and ugh, it's a big problem. They're a big problem. Any land that has that creature has a problem. They
Well,
are not a problem anywhere. Let me put it
well,
that
it's,
way.
it's it's very good as well, because
Yeah.
you see, if you get a chance to hold them, you can put them in a jar, kill them, put them in a jerry can, while with water, and you can, when it decay, that same thing you can give it to the crop. It's healthy for the crops as well.
Well, in other words, have you killed some of these large African land snails and then turned them into compost? I think is the word, right? Compost.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You put them into compost to decay and add water in it and put it around the crops, and it's very helping. It's helping very well.
That surprises me because I thought the snails were parasitic. I thought it had some very dangerous parasites.
No, no, no. It's all healthy for the crops.
Okay, so they're dangerous for people, but good for the crops in some
Yeah,
way.
when it died, when you kill it, you put it in jerry cans, add water for it, and when it decay, you spread
Hmm.
it around the plants. Like it's all organic. It's have no chemicals in it. It's
I
all organic.
wonder. I wonder how many other farmers do that, or if they just get so angry they just kill it and throw it over their shoulder. I wonder, do all the other farmers use the snails for their compost?
Yes, well, not much, but it's one of the farmers. He's a Rasta man, just like me. He's told me about it now, and I try it, and I see it works.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, apart from word of mouth, how do the farmers, how, number one, how do farmers communicate around the world? Are you in some farming and agriculture Facebook and WhatsApp groups? How does that work?
Well, not really, you know. There's most like, well, we in a farming where I live in a farming community, you know, all farmers will cast an eye on one another, you know. So like if they pass in and they see I had a slight problem, they'll tell me, okay, this area the crops is not growing well. Probably you have a problem, you need a drain, you know.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah, it's like because sometimes there's a water log there, you need to put a drain, you know, for the water to flow. So they'll pass and they'll tell me, look, that crop is that area is not growing in this how it's supposed to be, you know. So try and do something about it, and instantly I'll try and work on it, you know. Yeah.
so if you kind of get stuck, and I'm sure any farmer would, but as you get, if you ever get stuck and you don't really know how to solve a problem, how do you like go about like finding a remedy? Do you just research? Do you YouTube it? How do you figure out how to solve like technical agriculture problems?
Well, I think there's some guys that works in agriculture for so long. They've been on agriculture, so I can also give them a shout to pass and visit me, and they'll help me out. You know, they'll help me
Mm-hmm.
out. Yeah, they'll tell me exactly. You know, so because I plant ginger as well, and at the time they told me do not plant it flat, make beds. You know, plant it on beds, and it's give me some good performance as well.
Hmm. Yeah, ginger is very good, especially for ginger beer. There's a lot of things you can use ginger for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
And
So
so, what do you use the ginger for?
well, I only sell it by the markets and for the supermarkets as well.
Right. I see. I see. So it's just big cloves or big cloves of ginger, I guess, right?
Yeah, sometimes like 5, 6, 10 bags of garbage bags ginger.
Oh wow. That's a lot. That's a lot. So to give me an idea, how large is your property? Like is your land like where you
Well,
live now?
it's not well, right now I'm only occupied in about 2 acres, not much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, 2 acres is good. If it was larger than 2 acres, it would be a little difficult to.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Probably for I'm heading for more for the future, but for now I'm trying to struggle to maintain because I don't want to plant it and I cannot maintain. You know, if you have to plant it and you cannot take care of it, it makes no sense. So I'm trying to maintain what I planting right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that is good. That is good. And so how, as far as the land goes, so do you own the land or does the government own your land where the farm is? How is that
Well,
organized?
apparently where I plant right now is family lands. It's like it's family lands. My grandparents' land. So all of us occupy a portion of it.
I see. Very good. And do you think you'll ever grow coffee? I just took a sip of coffee.
Actually, well, I have two local coffee tree on my land, you know, and
Oh, you do.
it
Well,
just keeps falling down and it's going to waste now. It just go to
are you?
waste, you know.
Whoa! No, 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 no. We can't allow that. No, you got to let me help you with this. We can't. Come on, how am I gonna have coffee? I'm
Yes,
afraid now. This is a
uh,
problem. You can't just don't let a coffee tree fall down. You're killing me.
no, but the fact is that it's so difficult to pick up to process the coffee, you know. Long ago, my grandparents was used to do it, pump it and do it now, but now don't have the time to do all those things now.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I see. I see. And coffee is actually the seed that comes from a berry, I believe. So it's not quite. Yeah, coffee is comes from seeds. so.
Yeah. Small round seeds, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not a lot of hard work in it to do it now. You have to pick it up, put it to
Yeah.
dry.
Oh, I see.
Pump
So
it.
you would have to pick the berries, and then you would have to pick the seeds out of the berries,
Yes, and you
and
have to
then
put it,
roast those. Yeah.
yeah, dry it, and lots of hard works now.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So, I mean, what is the most difficult crop to work with on your farm?
Well, wow, the most difficult crops, is the corn,
Hmm.
because like the corn takes a lot of caterpillars.
So, in other
Uh,
words, there's a lot of caterpillars that
yes,
crawl around the
yes,
corn. Mm-hmm.
yes. That's the most difficult crops to I have to work with, because sometimes when you think your corn is growing so nice, by a day or two, it's in a mess already. You have to and sometimes I must use chemicals on it to save it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see. I see. Yeah, yeah. I recall that the corn. That answer does make sense, Tixie, because corn around here where I'm from is it kind of goes back and forth. Some days it's better than others. I do notice a lot of difference, a lot of fluctuation, with the flavor and the quality and the size of the kernels. Corn is kind of strange like that. Corn has a lot of flexibility. Yeah. Hmm.
Yes. It's not like the dash and the yam. You'll just plant it, clean it, and let it there. You must take care of the corn. You must there to take care of it.
I see. So corn that particular plant just requires more care. It's just a more
Yes.
demanding plant.
More care, more assistance all the time.
That's really strange. Why do you think what aspect of the plant makes it so difficult? Like, why does it need more care when everything else can kind of go about its business, I guess?
Corn is a vegetable, and corn is a soft crops. So by the time you plant it, it develop. You need a lot of care because caterpillar love it. Ground African still will just cut the
Mm-hmm.
tree, cut the slit. And sometimes I like to plant it because it's a fast crop. 2 to 3 months you'll harvest it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when sometimes the yam will have to stay 10 to 1 year before you harvest it. The corn is 2 to 3 months. It's a fast crop.
So, in other words, the turnover of corn is very fast. In other words,
Yeah,
you have to pick it just at the right time, and then you have to get it to the seller very quickly. Hmm.
yeah, yes. After all, we roast it and we sold it by the roadside.
I see. I see. So it doesn't really last as long as other things. Yeah.
No.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, the corn, the corn in the markets in my community, it's the type of corn that you don't really want to buy. It's the type of corn that was ready last October and they picked it 2 Octobers before, and then they froze it a couple of times. Corn is weird like that. Yeah. Hmm.
Then we pick it today, we sell it the same day or the next day by the roadside.
So then that's a lot of labor then. So if you have to sell it very quickly, that's
Yes.
very, very stressful. That's a stressful crop. I see. I see. Um, there has been a lot of talk in the United States over the years about the impact that farmers have on the environment and the environmental impact. And in addition to all of that, there's always some farmers are being talked into selling their corn to produce ethanol here in the states. What are your views on that matter? What do you feel the role of agriculture really needs to be in society?
Well, agriculture is one of the most stressful jobs sometimes for people, because sometimes you try and invest your money on the crops and you do not perform,
Mm-hmm.
and you go for a loss and you have to start all over again. It's really stressful sometimes, but as long as you love doing it, if you don't love do it, do not do it. You'll give up.
I could not imagine someone working as a farmer if they hated it. I I I don't know any of those farmers who say I'm a farmer and I hate farming. That would be hard, I think. Hmm.
Well, I can tell you sometimes it's a bit stressful
I see. I
because
see.
sometimes it's been stressful because, for instance, okay, sometimes you will dig like 16 heaps of yam and you have a tray of yam, but sometimes you dig 30 heaps of yam, you haven't got half of a tray. You know,
Mm,
it's,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
it's like you cannot rely on you cannot plans on it how it's supposed to be because sometimes it give you good satisfaction, sometimes it feel as well.
Right. Sure. Sure. That is extremely interesting. And but what are some other uses, or do you think there are any other acceptable uses of crops apart from eating them?
Well, I think we have a lot of plants going through waste in St. Lucia. A lot of things wasted in St. Lucia because we have no processing plant. It's just like okay, when is mangoes in season, a lot of mangoes going to waste. We have nothing to concentrate them to shift them across, you know. It's just like when the breadfruit in season, breadfruit will fall and it will go to waste.
Mm-hmm. I love that. The home where I lived in Lucia when I was volunteering there, just outside the porch, like on the driveway, there was like a breadfruit tree, and I would love to eat it. It's so delicious.
Yeah, you
It's
know.
kind of like describing it for an American who's never had it. My description is it's the combination between an apple and a potato, and it's kind of bitter and it's kind of sweet, and it kind of has a crunch. It has a little pinch to it. It's very refreshing. It's very very good. It's a very filling fruit. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you're eating your crops yourself, what is your favorite meal that you enjoy preparing with your crops?
Well, I would love to do some yam pie, some breadfruit pie, you know.
Mm.
Yes, some breadfruit pie, some yam pie, you know. Um, as well as some dashing as well, some ground provisions, but sometimes you don't really just cook it like this. You mix it, make some pie with it for the children, and they did
Hmm.
enjoy it. Yeah,
Well, that's good. That's good. Now, by pie, do you mean like a dessert or kind of like a pie that
uh,
you would eat for a meal? Like,
yeah, the pie like you cook it like you put the cheese, butter, then you bake it in the ovens and yeah,
yeah, like a tart, like a dinner tart, kind of like
yes,
that type of thing.
yeah. We call
Yes.
it a lot pie in St. Lucia.
Oh, that is good. That is good. My favorite meal in St. Lucia is definitely the swordfish and green bananas.
Oh my.
Man, oh man, nothing. I promise you. I promise if you want to disagree with me, you can, but I'm going to disagree with you. I
Well,
promise you that green bananas and swordfish with a piton beer, nothing is better than that meal.
that's all. It's all local, man. All local.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
Wow, man. Interested, eh? Interested.
I think I have a very interesting perspective because I loved volunteering in Lucia. I know a lot of Lucians, and of course, I just spoke. Well, I've known Mr. Wilbert for a while, but Mr. Wilbert's from Jamaica. But I now have been introduced to Rocco, who works at Blind Welfare Association where I used to volunteer years ago. So it's a very interesting connection. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Um, and of course, everyone has hobbies. So, what are your interesting hobbies that you like to do when you are not farming? Any interesting
Well,
hobbies that I wouldn't expect you to have?
well, apparently, I've been on the blog with my friends, you know, sit down there with my friends, have a nice jokes with them. Sometimes they take me out on a Friday night as well.
Oh, that's so good. That's really
It keep
important.
me out on
So
a Friday night.
the other people in your neighborhood will get together with you and take you out for a drink
Yeah,
or
yeah. Some I have a one, especially it's one of my little cousin, Casnell. He never check on me, bring me
hmm.
for drinks up the road. Walk me around sometimes. You
That's
know.
so nice. That's so
Yeah,
nice. hmm hmm
yes, yeah.
Very good. Very good. Now, how many other podcasters have you spoken to?
Beg my pardon.
How many other podcasts have you been on?
Well, some locals radio stations as well.
RCI, right?
No, no, not us. Yeah,
Oh, not RCI. Oh,
not
really?
us. Yeah, yes.
So what station were
That
you on?
that was south of St. Lucia once. I took Love FM. Was a
Mm-hmm.
station south of St. Lucia as well. And
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people know me around. They will beat me up on some stations. Sometimes I'm not even aware. And these people are telling me they hear Swizzy shouting me on radio
Why?
stations.
Why?
Because probably I meet them by the markets and they meet me by the market and they give me a shout out on radio stations.
Oh, I see. They give you a shout out on their station. Like
Yeah.
they like you. I see. I see. Good. That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of radio stations in St. Lucia. There's a lot of radio to listen to.
Yes, plenty, plenty, plenty.
Yeah, that's really important. That's really important. But I mean, outside of this podcast, have you been on any other podcasts, especially podcasts about agriculture?
No, not at all. No. No.
Really? Oh, that's too bad. Well, hopefully other farmers will hear this episode and they'll want to talk to you because I really appreciate what you're doing and you're very very knowledgeable. So keep up your farming. It's really critical work. But I'm sure that you have many questions for me. I will tell you that I'm an overly open podcaster and an overly open person. So I'm sure there's several things you want to ask me. So go ahead if you want.
So, when your intention to going back to Lucia for us to give one on one, meet one on one?
Ah, I see. In other words, when am I? Are you asking when I'm coming back to Lucia?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. God willing, I don't know. Um, I was kind of thinking about maybe coming back to your region, to kind of have a tour of some of the islands where some of my listeners are from. That would be that would be pretty do actually that would be pretty doable and pretty interesting. So I don't know, but I certainly wouldn't mind. But you know what though? You know what though? You might mind meeting me because if you do, I'm gonna want to come to your farm and I'm gonna want to help you farm. So I'm really fascinated by it. I would love to spend a day on the farm with you teaching me everything you've learned in your life about the land and how it works. That would be so good. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be welcome.
well, good. Well, now we still have to fix the coffee tree though. See, I've still filed a complaint about the coffee tree. I
Right.
don't know what we're gonna do about that, you know. But that is so good, man. So have you been to the like so where have you traveled to outside of Lucia?
Well, I think it's only once I traveled to Martinique as I'm blind. I went for 4 days vacation in Martinique, just across St. Lucia. So,
Oh, of course, Martinique. Et vous parlez français?
ti tak fonse.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, because everyone in Martinique speaks French. So,
Yeah, and Carol, we speak patois as well, and Martinique speaks patois.
yeah, they have their own Creole, their own language. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
noticed that. Yeah, it's very interesting.
yeah. So, I think
Yes.
just before COVID, I went for 4 days vacation.
hmm
Yes, because like a good friend of mine tell me I've been working too hard. Come for 4 days now. I couldn't stay that much because of when you're doing farming, you cannot stay out for long.
Right. Sure. Sure. That's interesting. So in Martinique, did you go to Fort de France?
Yeah, they turned me around very nice, good friends, good people, good vibes. They really turned me around nice and smooth. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Good, good.
yeah.
I see. I see. Um, Now, I mean, is Fort-de-France like a city, or is it like a big town like
First
Castries?
is the capital of Martinique. It's the capital, just like Castries is the capital of Saint Lucia.
Right.
Port-de-France is the capital of Martinique.
Hmm.
Yes.
And how did you find that city?
Well, that city is not that difficult because that's where the port, all the ferries, the
Hmm.
ferries coming in. So by the time you reach there, you're in the city already because that's where the ferry will dock. Yeah.
Right. Right. I, I see. So how long was the ferry from Lucia to Martinique?
It's just about an hour and a half.
Ah, okay. Very good. Very nice. Hmm. And where else have you been outside of Lucia?
Well, as I'm blind, that's the only place I went already. But before I was blind, I went to Barbados, St. Vincent.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, yes, yes.
And do you remember those places? Do you remember what it was like? What you did in Vincent and Barbados?
Sure, sure, sure.
What did you do in Barbados and Vincent?
Well, just for a vacation, as the same thing. Just went for vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Just went for a vacation, short vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see. I see. Good. Good. So what are some other questions you have for me?
It's an interesting show now tonight. Yeah. So you say you was born blind, right?
Correct.
Wow. May I ask your age now?
I am 30.
30 years old.
Yes.
Wow.
And you?
Well, I'm approaching 45 years old.
Ah, all right. Mm-hmm.
Approaching 45. October, I'll be 45 years old
That's
now.
interesting. How old did you think I was, by the way?
No, it sounds really very young. That's why I asked now. I was 40, was in mid 30s, about 35. So,
I see. I see. Some think I'm older, some think I'm younger. Mm-hmm.
yeah, but when I lost my sight, I was just approaching 30 years old now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Right.
yes. So,
Right.
and you say you lived in Brooklyn, right?
No,
New York.
I grew. No, I've never been to Brooklyn.
Oh, you grew in New York.
No, no, I was only saying that my time zone is New York. You see, there's this, we have Washington State and we have Washington D.C. So
Yeah.
we don't like to mix up the two. So we say New York time. But no, I'm near Washington D.C. somewhere. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Very, very nice.
So you patronize the different countries as you blend. So how many different countries in the Caribbean have you visit?
Um, well, just mainly Lucia, and then like one day I was in the Bahamas one day on some sort of a cruise when I was much younger. Um, but I've been all over Europe. I've been to France, of course. I've been to Swaziland, in Africa. I've been all over. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, interesting. That's
Mm-hmm.
one place I will happy to reach now in Africa.
I see. Yeah, yeah. It kind of reminded me of St. Lucia in a lot of ways, like the happy way of life, a lot of similar foods to the Caribbean, very similar in a lot of ways. Hmm.
Yes. I got some good African friends as well. Yeah.
Well, what country are they from in Africa?
Well, some of them from Ghana and Nigeria.
Okay. So you have some nice Ghanaian and Nigerian friends. That is
Yes.
that is
And
good.
they lives in St. Lucia. So
Okay, that's cool. That's really interesting. So what brought them to Lucia?
well, some of them, I think one is a doctor, is an
Hmm.
eye doctor,
Oh,
Dr.
that's
Nande.
good. Okay, that's good to
Yeah.
know.
And one is a businessman, because a lot of them run away from their own countries and they try and come on, because we all migrate for better life now. So, and they are hardworking bodies as well. Very
Hmm.
hardworking bodies.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes. Sometimes I was seeing I knew them and they still been checking on me, calling
Right.
me. Yeah.
Right. Right. And that is good. That is good. That's very, very interesting. So, yeah, with your eye condition, do you go to your ophthalmologist like once a year, or how does that work there in
Well,
Lucia?
it's a while I haven't even visited. It's a while I haven't even visited because it's more stressful, man, too. Each
Mm-hmm.
time to go and visit them, tell your eyesight cannot be restored. And
To some extent, I can understand. As long as your eyes are healthy, that's really
so,
that all that matters, really. Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. Yeah. And
because I don't even want to talk about my blindness with people to make me believe like I'm blind.
it's a
It's,
you're very right. You're very right. No, I get it. I get it. And the other thing is, of course, I was born blind, so I never had to transition to blindness. That's totally different.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It's in the beginning it was hectic, to readjust the life with blindness. Yeah,
Yeah, I can imagine that must be very strange,
yeah.
being a functioning sighted person, and then all of a sudden needing to, do your life completely. I mean, that must be really weird, you know. Not to mention, especially if you're used to looking at crops when you're sighted, and all of a sudden you still have to farm and you're blind. That must be pretty strange, but that is fine. That's I understand to some degree, but that's also life, right? That's
It's life, it's life, it's life. We don't push that behind back, and we blind people have to move forward.
that is
You know,
true
we
indeed.
have to go beyond the standards to see what we can do for our life. We cannot just stay there and think and stay backward. You
Right.
know,
Sure. Sure. Of course. Of course. And so, there in Lucia, what support have you received from the Ministry of Agriculture, and do they know about the important work you're doing?
they aware of it. But they know about it. But now I'm telling you, those institutions almost like dormant for me. When I say dormant, they don't visit me on a regular basis. They don't come to me. They don't ask me what I need. Nothing like that.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry to hear it. That's very frustrating. So, if the Lucian Minister of Agriculture came to you tomorrow and they said, "What do you need? What do you need? What would you need?"
I'll quick tell them, give me a greenhouse so I can plant some short crops.
So you need one of those greenhouses where you go in and it's kind of warm and it has, yeah, an environment. So basically, you need to put your crops in some sort of a greenhouse so they would grow more quickly.
But it's not all the crops. I'll start doing some short crops now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. If you have a greenhouse, you can start doing some short crops.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right. Right. I see. I see. That is all extremely interesting. Mhm. So, and if you come to the United States, where would you like to go?
If I come to the United States, where would I like to go?
Yes.
I believe I love Florida.
Yeah, Florida is interesting, although it's very, very hot for most of the year. Florida tends to be too hot, but it does depend on the weather. Um, at any rate, I wanted to take this time and say that we are we are out of time. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me here at Aaron's Opinion. Now you're in my group. You're in the big family of Aaron's Opinion. You are always welcome on the podcast, uh,
Yeah.
and all of that. Do you have any a final word of a final word for the audience before we end the recording?
Yes, I'm so happy to be a member, a part of the podcast. So I'm just pray to God all will go well, and this podcast will get the sponsor it deserve to keep it lively up now.
Okay, okay. Well, you take care of yourself, and of course, keep up your great work. And
And
I wish your crops and you and your family the very best of health to you all. All right.